England have announced their team to play against Fiji this Saturday at Twickenham in London, and I'm going to review that team right now in this video. G'day everyone and welcome to Inside Rugby. My name's Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Cancun, Mexico. And in this video we're going to have a look at why the England team have selected the team they have to play against Fiji on Saturday. Now, an interesting fact, there's probably going to be more people in the Twickenham Stadium on Friday to watch the All Blacks play the Springboks than there are to watch their home nation play against Fiji on Saturday. And that's probably an example of the state of English rugby at the moment and what the English rugby fans think of the English team and the way that they're playing. But nevertheless, let's get into this English team and let me give you some thoughts around this particular game. Now, I think this is another critical game for Steve Borthwick and the team this weekend, as it's their last preparation game before they head off to France for the Rugby World Cup. And as we all know, England have been playing very subpar rugby for their warm-up games so far. Freddie Stewart, by the way, is the only player that has started all 4 games in the warm-up series for England. And once again, we see a number of changes for England in this particular game. Before the announcement was made, Anthony Watson was declared unfit for England for the Rugby World Cup. Sad news always when we hear a player is not going to make it to the World Cup, and Watson has a calf injury that's going to keep him out of the Rugby World Cup. So England has to do some shuffling when it comes to their wingers. And Watson was one of those players that I thought could ignite that English backline and get some points for them out wide, but it's not going to be the case for him, unfortunately. And we've seen a replacement come in this game against Fiji. So I think Borthwick's going to need to have a well improved performance against Fiji, and don't underestimate this Fiji side. They're going to be coming to play against England on Saturday, that is for sure. And we've seen, since Fiji has joined the Super Rugby series under the Jura team, we've seen the improvement in Fiji rugby, and it just shows what happens when the second tier teams get an opportunity to play against top teams on a regular basis. And one other thing that I just want to confirm again in my video is that since the last Rugby World Cup, Fiji has only played 15 rugby internationals, and in the case of England, this will be their 35th rugby international since the last Rugby World Cup. So it just shows the gulf between the top teams and the second tier teams and the lack of international experience that a lot of these players get. Okay, so let's have a look at the English team and see who's going to be running out this weekend, starting off in the forwards. So the front row for England's going to be Genge, Theo Dan and Dan Cole. Theo Dan getting his first start in an England jersey, and that's an interesting tight 3 for me, so it's going to be really interesting to see how they go up against the big Fijians. So in the locks for England we have Maro Itoje and Ollie Chessum, and Ollie Chessum's playing his first start-on game since March of this year, so he's got a big opportunity to get out there and show what he's like when he's starting a particular game. So two good locks there for England, and they will be expected to win a lot of ball at set pieces for England and be big in the scrums against the Fijians. In the back 3 for England we have Courtney Laws, who's celebrating his 100th international cap this weekend, and Steve Borthwick has given him the captaincy, so he's going to be captaining the English side this weekend. Jack Willis on the other flank, and Ben Earl at the back in number 8 position. And of course Billy Vunipola has been suspended through that red card incident. It was interesting for me to read an article by Matt Dawson, the former English number 9, who said in the last couple of days that he thought that Billy Vunipola's red card and subsequent suspension will have a bigger impact on this English team than Owen Farrell's missing from the team. I thought that was quite succinct, because Billy Vunipola has a really big role to play at number 8 for England against Argentina, and I think Owen Farrell's exclusion from the team for that game will be easily covered by either Marcus Smith or George Ford. So expect either George Ford or Marcus Smith, obviously, to start that game against Argentina. But an interesting comment there. We've got Ben Earl coming in at number 8 this weekend for Steve Borthwick's side, and that is the list of forwards that's going to be playing for England this weekend against Fiji. I think these English forwards are going to have a hell of a time against the Fijian forwards. I think Fiji's really going to see an opportunity here this weekend to take England down. I think they will be buzzing against England because of their performance against France. I think they were lacking in some areas, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in this video. So that's the English pack to take on Fiji this weekend. Now let's have a look at their backline. So in the halves we have Alex Mitchell coming in for his first start at halfback for England, and he's going to accompany George Ford. I think Ford's been getting the nod because of his ability to get this backline away, although England haven't showed any innovation through that backline at this stage. But we'll see how George Ford goes this weekend. And then we have an interesting centre combination of Manu Tuilagi and Ollie Lawrence coming in this weekend. It's the first time that these two are starting together as the centre combination for England, and I guess Steve Borthwick's going for size and power in the centres to try and take on these Fijians this weekend. So it's going to be really interesting to see how both Ollie Lawrence and Manu Tuilagi are able to handle the Fijians both in offence and defence this weekend. Now on the wings we have Max Malins, and Johnny May is back in for England. There's a name we haven't heard for a while, so a bit of a surprise there to have Johnny May coming back in, but Steve Borthwick obviously thinks he's the guy. And Max Malins there, who always plays a steady game without being a superstar for England, although he knows where the try line is. Freddie Stewart back at fullback, and as I said, Freddie Stewart is the only player in this team to play all the 4 warm-up games, start all the 4 warm-up games for England in this summer series. So there's the English backline. I think it's good. They haven't yet shown their abilities in terms of being able to break teams open and score tries, and that's the big thing we've been missing from England throughout this campaign under Steve Borthwick, is they just haven't been scoring tries, and they've been relying on the boot of George Ford or Marcus Smith to get them penalty goals. And I think that's always going to be a problem for them in the Rugby World Cup if they can't break the defence of their opponents down. So there we go, that's the team announced by Steve Borthwick to take on Fiji this weekend. Now let's have a look at the reserves that are going to line up for this weekend's game. So 3 backs reserves in this game, Danny Kerr and Marcus Smith, who were also on the bench against Ireland. And Joe Marchant comes in as the 3rd replacement on the bench. So again, it'll be interesting to see when Marcus Smith comes on, really rate this player. He makes a difference to that English backline. And boy, does this English backline need some inspiration from somewhere. Danny Kerr also came on and sped up the game, I thought, against Ireland. And that was something else that England needed as well. So I'm sure those 2 guys will be injected into the game at some stage. And it'll be interesting to see whether they're going to be chasing the game at that stage or whether they're trying to protect an England lead. Now looking at the forward replacements in this game for England this weekend, we have Walker, Marler, Stewart, Ribbons and Ludlam. And I really like Ludlam. I think he's a really good player. It needs to get more time on the field, and I'm sure that we're going to be see him coming on and making a difference for England. So again, good, strong, solid, powerful players for England, but it doesn't matter me saying all the time about how powerful and strong these guys are. They've got to be showing the skill sets that are required to be playing at this level if they expect to advance in the Rugby World Cup. I've shown, and I've said many times here on my channel so far, I've been disappointed in the way that England rugby has been played in the last number of tests under Steve Borthwick. They need to up their game. I'm not an England hater, I just merely want to see England playing at their full potential. And as it's been stated on many channels across YouTube, they are really lacking in that area. So let's hope that this game against Fiji, that England can find their combinations, work out how to crack through our defence and actually score some points against this Fiji team. And I think that's going to be easier said than done. I think Fiji's really going to come to play this weekend. And there's one thing I noticed that is lacking a little bit in the Fiji game, and I think it might be the big difference this weekend. And that is that Fiji's execution of skills in that last moment is lacking a little bit. And what I mean by that, there was a number of times where Fiji made really good breaks against the French. They got to that critical phase of play where they were about to spread it wide, and they had a handling error, or they made a poor decision around a pass or a kick. And that skill execution level is the critical thing, or that last percentage that we see top teams doing to make a difference in their games. And if you watch the All Blacks or the Springboks or France or Scotland even, you'll see that the execution level is always very, very high. And that's what really let Fiji down against France in that particular game. They had their chances, I thought, against France, but when it came to that critical pass or that critical decision making, Fiji let themselves down. So if they do that against England, they may have similar troubles, but let's hope they can put that together, and then they'll really be able to take it to England in this particular game. I think the first 20 minutes of this game is going to be absolutely critical. I think Fiji's going to try and come out and dominate England, both in the forwards and running at them as well, to test out their defence. And it's going to be interesting to see if England are going to be able to repel that attack by Fiji and then be able to set up their own forms of offensive attacks as well. I don't know whether England have the firepower to get through this Fiji team, but I'm guessing over 80 minutes they are going to be a little bit more sustainable. So I think England might squeak this one, maybe by about 6 points, but I see Fiji giving them a hard time at Twickenham. So let me know what you think. It's a fascinating encounter, this one. I think Fiji are playing much better rugby these days than they have over the years. I think they're not going to Rugby World Cup to make up the numbers anymore. They've got a real chance of causing an upset, and if they get over the top of England this weekend, I think it's going to give them the world of confidence and build some huge motivation going into that first pool game that they've got in the Rugby World Cup. So just confirming, Anthony Watson is out of the English team because of a calf injury for the Rugby World Cup. He'll be missing. Johnny May's coming in to play this particular game. Ollie Lawrence and Manu Tuilagi are starting for the first time in the centre combination, and Alex Mitchell is getting his first start at halfback for England in this game. Courtney Laws is the captain this weekend, and they're up against a very determined and a very focused Fijian side who's going to go all out to try and get this win at Twickenham on Saturday. Okay, so there we go. Let me know what you think of this English team. Do you think that Danny Kerr and Marcus Smith should be starting this game? A lot of people might be thinking that. And do you think that centre combination of Tuilagi and Ollie Lawrence are going to make a difference for England this week in trying to get their backs some momentum going forward? Do you see Fiji as a real threat in this game? Do you think they can take it to England across the 80 minutes? And do you think discipline is going to be something else that comes into this game and makes a big difference? We've seen it over the years with Fiji. They get too many penalties against them, particularly around scrum time. That's something we're going to have to watch out for in this game. And as the game goes on and the players get more and more tired, if England start to dominate in that England in the forward area, I can see Fiji conceding a few penalties and maybe even a yellow card. And I think if a player gets sent off from Fiji in this game, that could potentially be their biggest downfall. So I think Fiji will be focusing on trying to keep 15 players on the field of play. I think that's going to be critical for them. And dare we say it, it's also been something that England need to focus on too after their last few games. So this channel only works for me if you provide me with comments and sharing. It's all about sharing our rugby knowledge across the world. I'm here in Mexico. I want to make this game as global as we possibly can. So drop your comments about the England versus Fiji game. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Gives me some motivation that I'm heading in the right direction with this channel. And give the old video a thumbs up as well if you like my analysis of going into these games. I'll be back again soon. I'm covering all the games this weekend. I'll be back soon with my weekend predictions for this weekend's games, and also early next week a full review of all the warm-up games that have been played this weekend. The last warm-up weekend before we head to the Rugby World Cup, starting 2 weeks tomorrow. Getting very excited, folks. Okay, time for me to go. Thank you very much for watching my videos. I do appreciate it, and I hope you all stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you again really soon. Until then, bye for now.